Hey folks, welcome back. We are joined by Jake Freeman, otherwise known as CareerFlex. He's also the people's therapist online. If you see him at CareerFlex on X, he's grown a very large following recently and has become he's expert, the people's therapist expert. But we kid because we've become friends over the last couple of years, and
Yeah.
he's given me advice on how to rehab my deck, which I reject, and then I do my deck poorly. And then I've given him advice on how to become a marriage and family therapist, and he rejects that and becomes a poor one. Um, Kidding aside. Hi, how are you? What are you up to?
Good, man. I'm just being a poor therapist. I don't know if my following is big. It went from 500 and people in November to now 7,500
That's big.
in
I
April.
think it's
Well,
big.
it's a moderate, humble homestead. Just I've found, man, it's just reporting stories as I experience them dealing with clown world. The Sweden one was the first thing. Um, I've got a life philosophy given to me by my father, which was plan your life out in 4 year increments because you won't really. He said you'll be surprised at how quickly you get bored with something,
Hmm.
and also it's really difficult to tell how much the world or you personally will change in the course of 4 years. So figure out just the fundamentals that you really care about, happiness, strong family, peace, and enough money to be left alone. Those will never change. And so just figure out it's 2026. What do I need to be doing? What do I want to be doing by 2030? And just plan it out that way and then reverse engineer it from then to 2029, 2028, 2027, back through the quarters, back through the months, down to the day. And now you know what you need to do today. So go do it.
That's
And
cool.
so that
I
took
like that.
me, yeah, it was great. So that took me into being the first person in my family to get a bachelor's degree because when my dad and mom were growing up, you didn't really need a college degree to do anything. And then there was this window where you absolutely had to have it. And now we're in this weird AI world where sometimes it's better not to have it and just know how to use a hammer and a saw, right? So did that, got two master's degrees, became a Marine Corps officer, uh, lived all over the world and started two companies and have a great wife, great family of four kids and a homestead and a trust and all the rest of it. And life is going pretty good. So I just write these stories of what life has been like in clown world, fighting clown world. Cause man, the people who find out you're actually functional and can do things, there are some people that get very, very angry at that and they fight you with everything they've got.
Yeah.
Crabs in a pond. So yeah, there we go.
Yeah. And that's our podcast. Thanks for tuning in and downloading our content as always. No, I'm just kidding. So we met because you were floating around on the interwebs, and a mutual colleague, JD Haltigan, who has been on the
Hmm.
show, connected us because he I think he saw that you were running around unsupervised and possibly needed some guidance, and you seemed like a solid person who was trying to find his way in this lost world. And by that I mean the lost world of mental health and therapy
Yeah,
broadly, but you were in grad school at the time. I think you were in grad school at the time, or maybe
I
just
was in
out.
grad school.
Yeah, and you were trying to find basically some sane people anywhere. And I said, oh, I'll take him under my wing. So I reached out and then we connected. But you have a very curious story as to why you entered this field. Now, I'm
Yeah.
going to frame that a little bit by saying that in the other podcast I do, Guns and Mental Health by Walk the Talk America, we recently interviewed a guy who had a similar story. He's like, I became a therapist because I couldn't find a therapist. You
Yeah.
fall into that camp also, but
Yeah.
yours is more pernicious than that. So I'm going to get out of the way now and let you tell your story as to why you wanted to do this after a successful career doing very different things.
Yeah. So I got out of the Marine Corps in 2014. Uh, everything I do, I try to do it to the most radical and extreme way a man can. So when I joined the Marine Corps, I oriented towards the infantry battalions, regardless of MOS. I wanted to be with the Marines doing Marine Corps stuff. So I was in the Victor units, deployed, pretty rapidly, and it was pretty kinetic. I was fortunate to have a phenomenal battalion leadership, and I got to do pretty much all the things I wanted to do, give or take. Um, and when I got out, what I didn't realize was the effects of what we would call now post-traumatic stress disorder. But growing up as a fairly religious, straight-laced, straight-edge type of guy, and then giving yourself over to Judge Holden and the God of War, when I came out, I was just vastly different, impacted, and it wasn't good. It wasn't good for me. It wasn't good for the family. And if there's a whole story with how post-traumatic stress manifests itself. So I thought, well, I'm not going to be able to whiskey this away. Come to find out, whiskey helps until it doesn't. Went and sought out a mental health professional. I didn't really know anything about the mental health industry, but I knew psychologists with PhDs are good. They're like, that's what you go see, a psychologist with a PhD. Because my first bout of grad school was industrial organizational psychology, very different sort on a PhD track, till I decided I don't want to be a professor or anything like this. I want to be a practitioner of things. Anyway, so I go to this guy and I unload everything. Like, look, I feel numb to the world. I don't feel like my family of origin really understands me anymore at all. My community that I came from, they certainly don't get me. I don't find much satisfaction in the civilian world here. It all seems fake and gay. Didn't say fake and gay at the time, but it seems artificial and non-propagating. So I laid that all out to him, and he says, well, I appreciate you sharing with me your stories of what Afghanistan was like and the Marine Corps was like. And, while it could be combat trauma and PTSD, have you ever considered that maybe you're transgender? And I said, "Por qué?" And I said, "What the fuck?" And he said, "Yeah, well, you feel like you don't belong. You feel like you're just uneasy with yourself. People around you don't understand you. Is there a chance that maybe you need to reveal who you really are?" And I was looking like this at the time. I even had I think a bigger beard, and I
Yeah, for
was
the
like,
listening audience, Jake is your prototypical masculine-looking man. He's got his sides of his head shaved. He's got a little bit of a mohawk down the top. It's just pulled into,
mm-hmm.
I think, a man bun in the back. But he's got a very healthy-looking beard, and he's built
Very
about
tight
like a
man bun, by the
linebacker.
way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you would never mistake him for a woman.
No, so he saw the bulge of my feminine penis, but he definitely went down the route of maybe I'm transgender, and I thought, all right, this guy's a clown. I mean, this guy is haha.
This is
I found
session
it funny.
one. This is session
This
one.
this was about session three. This was
Okay,
about session three because before that, he did a good job of letting me unload it all before he came up with his prognosis, and his
that's
prognosis is
wild.
that I need to get boob implants and a wig, and that would fix it, right? So anyway, so I said, all right, this guy's a goofball. I ain't doing this with this fool. I will go and find somebody else. So I then went through, I think, three other therapists. By that time, I just started going down the Rolodex or the yellow pages to find somebody. And the next person I went to was like, oh, well, we the literature says that experiences as an adult don't really affect us. This would all go back to your childhood trauma that you didn't receive enough affection. And how was your
So
relationship with your mother and father?
that person just
What?
wrote off the war experience.
Oh, 100%, 100%.
This is where
It
were
was,
you? Were you in Montana at the time?
no, we were in California.
Okay.
Yeah, California. So it turned into, uh, you didn't get enough hugs growing up. And I was like, no, my mom and dad were fine. I mean, I'm still very close to my mother. My father passed away about 2006. It wasn't hugs. I think it was the fact that I still to this day can smell like what burned intestines of humans smell like. There's lots of things that when I get a random whiff of curry, all of a sudden I'm peaked out. head on a swivel, and Korean BO, by the way, which you go by any kind of subcontinent, Pakistani, Afghan sort of restaurant or area of town, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I was peaked. I was ready to go. This isn't good, right? So it was I needed to put on a skirt. I need to go back in time, get enough hugs. Just on and on down. Just nobody really got it until I went and met with a slightly past prime, hot Michelle Pfeiffer looking therapist, LMFT. And she was a gunnery sergeant of Marines, and she had been blown up, so she went through the whole rigmarole. And I sat and just pushed play on my little story, because by this time I had rehearsed it so much. And so she hears me out. This is first session. She hears me out and says, "Jake, I know what's wrong with you." And I said, "What's that?" And she said, "You're fucked up." I'm like, "Yes, correct." And she said, "I can help you." And so she took me down some CBT, talk therapy, but also EMDR. Phenomenally good at it. She was. And I had with her excellent experiences. She didn't make me like tap or
Tap.
whatever. Yeah, she didn't make me do those things, but like she used like lights and stuff. Um, and she removed a multitude of sins. She was wonderful. And so I was like, sweet, good. I'm back together, back in the fight. Let's go. About 6 months later, I ended up in a room full of a bunch of Marine guys I knew. And we were talking, and this guy this guy over here is like, "Yeah, the other day I came home and parked in front of my dad's driveway, and I walked in to talk to him, and he said, 'Hey, bud, can you move your truck from my driveway?' And I knocked that bastard out. I love my dad. I don't even know why I hit him." And this guy is like, "Yeah, I came home, I came home from my morning run, and my wife asked if I would take my shoes off, and I had the coffee pot in my hand, and all of a sudden the coffee pot exploded next to her head on the wall. I threw it at her. I didn't even know I did it. I didn't want to throw that." And the other guy's like, "Yeah, I came home and my dog is so happy to see me. He's jumping up on me, and I kicked the shit out of that dog. I don't know why. I love that dog. I don't want to kick my dog." And I'm like, "Hey, I feel like Oprah. You've got PTSD. You've got PTSD. We all got PTSD." And they're like, "Yes, we know it." And I said, "Yeah, cool. So have you ever tried therapy?" And they were like, "Yeah, this guy told me I was a tranny. This guy told me that it was white oppression. This guy told me it was the patriarchy." Like, just the dumbest shit you've ever heard. Um, Trauma, it was a lot of trauma based therapy or trauma informed therapy, but with zero insight whatsoever on the wartime combat experience. It was like so far over what any of these therapists could comprehend, they didn't even deal with it. They just went right into the safest, most TikTok era therapy you could imagine. So I was like, holy crap, man, we got a problem. Like, nobody is getting help they need. Like, no shit, there's 22 suicides a day or whatever. So, I looked into my 9/11 GI Bill, and uh, I still had a bunch of months left. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to go for a psychotherapy degree. I really liked what the gal had done, who was a LMFT with me. So I started going down that route, because at the time, at least, I love psychometric testing, and it can be really useful, in my opinion. And At the time, at least in California, the LMFT route gave you a ton of optionality on being able to do a bunch of that testing and stuff that, like, no kidding, master's level psychotherapists weren't allowed to do. Only PhD psychotherapists were do. A lot of licensed professional counselors weren't able to do. I don't know. I value optionality over stability at any moment, right? And so I went down that route. It still kind of remains true in Montana, not as much, but I used up all the 9/11 GI Bill stuff, before I was able to attain the degree. I am not going to go down the route of getting in debt, so I started a trades business, a construction company on the side, got that up to sufficient to cover all my needs and the bill for grad school. And then I found out that you don't really get paid at all while you're accruing all your hours for licensure. And so that was another 2 years of pain and suffering, which this trades business I built got me through. I don't know how other people do it. Well, I do know they go through debt and then they get shitty jobs in community care. So anyway, yeah, that was kind of my story. And so here I am in Montana as a fully licensed marriage and family therapist with a trades company on the side. And I broker no bullshit when it comes to the woke mind virus because it tries to kill people through lies and deception and unreality. I just can't do it. And I almost got kicked out of my grad school, expelled for saying that, and this was the crux of it. Uh, Traditional Christian perspectives, conservative perspectives, are not something to be treated. And so when our clients come in with traditional Christian and conservative perspectives, we're not supposed to try to treat them, make them social justice warriors. We're actually supposed to honor their worldview, as so long as it's what they want to do and healthy. And that was met with such rage and shock by a couple professors, very, very woke professors, that they actually tried to get me expelled out of the program as a poor fit. Now, I'm pretty tricksy. And so what they didn't realize as a disabled combat veteran, I've got the same size of Schwartz as a transgender wheelchair person. And so when they pulled that card, I informed them I'm going to file a discrimination lawsuit under federal law. And they were like, oh my God, how can a white abusive narcissist do this to us? And I could. And they folded because, of course, they did. So here we are, Jake.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. I want to
That's what she said.
go. I want to go back to your therapy experience, though, and ask you why you didn't just quit after the first one or two or three times. Like, why did you keep pursuing it? It seems to me that in my experience here as a clinician, when people get poor therapy the first time, or for certainly the first couple of times, they just give up and they blanket the entire profession as being unreliable and at worst harmful. And it won't be until many, many, many years later that they even give it a shot again because things get really
Yeah.
bad or they have a death and they can't cope or whatever. So in my intake interviews, I'll say, what's your experience with counseling prior to this? And often people will say something like, "Oh, I've had therapy before, it worked, and now I'm back." Or sometimes they'll say, "I did it once as a kid and it was terrible because the therapist tried to, do similar things that you
Right.
shared." Or they made me just play with a bunch of toys and I didn't know why I was there and I hated every minute of it. And
Yep.
and so now they're in their 30s or whatever. Like, but there's this continual theme of I tried it, it sucked. I didn't want to try it again. I didn't even want to try it this time, but XYZ was so bad that I'm here now. So why didn't you quit? Why didn't you just like say, screw this is dumb? What propelled you to keep pursuing?
Uh, Look, I had just come out of a organization which the entire doctrine might be called find a way or make one. Um, I have found that most people are fairly incompetent and bad at what they do. Um, and so when you go and try to get something done and that person sucks, you just gotta get rid of them and go next, go next, go next, go next. And we did that in Afghanistan all the time. Some guy would show up and he would be a huckster or a fraud or a Taliban plant. Get rid of him, go to the next guy. Get rid of him, go to the next guy until you can find the appropriate allies to build, right? So yeah, no, I just once this guy identified himself as a stooge, had nothing to do with me. That was him. He's a clown, and
Yeah,
so
yeah,
move to the
for
next one.
sure. I like that mentality because I think that's got some personal applicability to my present condition, which I will not go into right now. But the idea is that that's not popular. We don't
No,
really have that anymore today, right? Let's like keep going until you find something that works. Now it's like try it a couple times, and if it doesn't work, quit and try something else completely different.
yeah. Look, I had a conversation with a guy the other day, and he answered a question for me that I had not even known I was asking. And that was we were talking about how therapy currently is poisoned by this whole push towards vulnerability, uber alles.
Mm-hmm.
And he talked about how vulnerability is one side of it, but the duality is fortitude.
Yes,
You
yes.
cannot build vulnerability unless you're also building a person's fortitude. And I am a huge believer in resilience and fortitude. And that was one of the other things that got me in big trouble in grad school is that they were talking about empathy and vulnerability. And it's like, yeah, what about resilience? And the professor at the time literally said, why would you say that? And I'm like, say what? Like resilience. And
Let me
that,
guess, white supremacy?
yeah. It was, that was an ableism.
Yeah.
You can't assume that people are able to be resilient. And I'm like, well, go fuck yourself. Yes, you can. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear. I keep swearing. Um,
I'm sure Safisa will mute that.
yeah,
No, he
yeah, yeah.
won't.
Um, he might ask his wife to get me my delicious water bottle because I'm so thirsty. Um, anyway,
She there
yeah,
with you in the
man.
hotel room?
Yeah. She's sitting over here after her tests.
Mrs. Flex.
Mrs. Flex. But no, man, it's this fortitude thing. Nobody is coming to save you, uh, and that's not a cold, callous way of looking at life. Because what you find out is when you make yourself resilient and capable and able, other people then do want to be around you, and you find your allies are thick. Whereas if you're weak and feckless, allies start flooding away from you. Now, it's a little bit weird in our industry because
It's
the
inverted.
it's inverted. The proper masculine traits, the masculine virtues are demonized, which is why it's falling apart in the public eye and with funding and with so many clinics closing because they were reliant on government funds. And so we're building something anew, I think, and that's always painful. We're building off the body of a dead giant. We're restarting the world,
It,
adult Jake.
it's it's adult Jake. For those of you not in the inside joke, on our signal chat, I'm adult Jake and he is adolescent Jake.
Rabbi
Um,
Jake now.
Rabbi Jake now. But so you touched on something there about resilience. So we in Nevada we have something called the Resilience Project, and like resilience seems to be this nice cool word, except in certain circles it's demonized, and that's part of the gaslighty erosion of all that is real and true and honest and good. Is if you don't know where you stand, except when people tell you where to stand, then you're incumbent upon them to make all the decisions for you, right? And I think that's the direction that our field has gone. So you say, if you build character and resilience and fortitude, you tend to have allies gravitate. I would argue that that is inverted. I think that what's being pitched is the more broken a person is, the more victim they can claim, the more rally they have. Because
Mm-hmm.
there's this hive mind think that ends up in a feedback loop of we're all victims in this together, but none of them are taking action to solve the problem because if they did, they'd lose their victim identity. And
Right.
who are you without an identity, right? So I would argue that there's this weird juxtaposition of what you're saying, which I believe and I agree with, which is we're trying to heal people. We, as therapists, we should be sitting with people to help guide them through pain and to fortitude, to strength, right? But then there's this other cadre that thinks that their job is just to sit with them forever in their pain and never solve it. And I don't know that we can even convince people that that's incorrect because it wasn't correct until 5 minutes ago. Now that's all we hear is like, no, just affirm their illness, affirm their sickness, affirm their delusions. Like, why? What was our job? Our job was to help people heal. Not anymore, it appears to be. So when 85% of the field is going that direction, it's really hard to advertise to the community that no, I'm
Yeah.
different, right? I will help get you better and permanently so that you never come back to my clinic again. How are you seeing this as, like I know we exchange messages about patients sometimes when we staff cases because we that's
Yeah.
a way that the clinicians sharpen each other. We hone each other by staffing cases. But how are you seeing this not only in your clinical setting but also in the real world when you're interacting with folks who are like, I think I need therapy, like those Marines you were talking about. How do you
Yeah.
convince them that they're not going to land in the lap of somebody who's just going to be like, "Oh, you're just broken forever now." There's no hope.
Well, look, great question, and I'm incredibly cautious with who I send potential clients to. I can't take on everybody, nor do I want to. But there are these emerging groups like what SOAD has with conservativecounselors.com. It's a uh, vetted group of non-insane therapists. You
So
know,
Ed
it's,
Tabrizi, also a guest of
yeah,
the show. Yes.
yeah, yeah. So Therapy Xena has done a great job of building that parallel structure. Um, it's another reason why I am uh, transgressive, far more transgressive than any of my clinical supervisors ever would have wanted me to be while I was in grad school on my X account, social media, because there are very real people that do need help, but they don't want to get into a scab picking, grass bleeding ceremony uh, with whatever they have to talk about, and a lot of it's very very real. With somebody who's just going to keep them in this permanent trauma loop, this sadness loop, and so uh, a lot of the stuff I write is to bring people to my lightning rod, so that when I get messages in X all the time asking for advice on how can they find a good therapist. I'm like, well, here's the via negativa to look for. Here's the things that will definitely show you that they're not your tribe. But here's some good places you can look, and here's some good questions you can ask. Right. Um, while I don't want therapists to go and be political within their sessions, as the shit libs have said, the personal is political now. They pushed it to such a limit that even saying my wife or my husband instead of my partner is a political flag, right? And identity. So you've got to be cautious as a therapist to not sit across from somebody who hates you. And the amount within these like Facebook groups that I always get kicked out uh, of therapists who talk about how they loathe and seethe any Trump voter, seethe hatred. You cannot sit across from a person like that and expect not to be harmed, even if they're consciously trying to not harm you. If they deeply hate you inside, it's going to come out the sidewall.
But that's what they're saying about you, right? The people who are on the conservative, libertarian, political end of spectrum, the religious, right? That's what
Yeah.
Therapy Jeff, who Soad and I
Yeah.
dismantled in our podcast several weeks ago. He says, if you're MAGA as a therapist, you cannot be a therapist because you are the enemy, right? So he's
Mhm.
essentially, I mean, he's self-advertising that he hates 50% of the country, but he's also saying that if you fall into that camp, you're the harmful one. So there's this exercise of
Yeah.
shadow projection going on, and I don't know how we help people understand that while not becoming binary ourselves. And when I say we,
Yeah.
because it is an us versus them at this point, where it's like it's not along political lines, it's along judgmental, non-judgmental, courteous, rigid. It's
Right.
like neutral and subjective, right? Like those are the lines that are being drawn. It's everything that's antithetical to the profession as I learned it 15, 17 years ago.
Yeah.
Those of us who want to stay in the center, we may not be politically right on the continuum. We may be left, we may be center, but we are definitely not lunatics trying to badger people into drinking our ideology. Like
Right.
and I don't know what to do about that when so many people are out there who are just untrustworthy. I don't know.
Right.
Like,
It's what I'm doing in my little clinic and with my little client groups is back to the basics. There was a little mantra that I hated in the Marine Corps because I always like new exciting things, but it was brilliance in the basics, and I hated it, and it's absolutely true. That was an account of me being adolescent Jake, and now I'm Rabbi Jake, so I see it. I see the wisdom. But like one of the things that I do uh, almost on intake, usually about session 2 with my clients, is I take people, just about everybody, as well as couples. I don't care if they're gay or not. For some reason, I'm really popular with lesbian couples. Don't know why. I thought I was going to create a sausage fest as a clinician. It was going to be all dudes all the time. It is. It's all dudes and lesbians. Don't know why.
Hmm.
Um,
Fascinating.
yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's because I look like without the beard, pretty ideal lesbian. I mean,
Well, it's
look
because
at
you're
it.
a woman on the inside, per that first psychologist as
Yes,
well.
yes. Anyway, I take him through Dr. Jonathan Haidt, peace be upon him's moral foundations questionnaire, um, because I can once we get really clear on that, I've got a really great AI subroutine built that, according to the parameters I've set, I can suss out huge amounts of information about that individual or that couple based on their answers of the moral foundations questionnaire. That was that SQL code, not SQL, but that JSON code I sent to in the group chat a while ago. I can
Yeah, the
show
one
you.
where I said I like pudding because I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
understand that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I can predict where their conflicts are going to be, right? And right now, with Therapy Jeff saying that conservatives can't be uh, therapists because they're not completely drunk to poison on empathy. He's objectively retarded, like scientifically, he's retarded. According to Haid's work, he is blind. He's got this one moral index that he's on instead of the six. He's blind. The only one he can see is that one. And everybody else is talking about these other ones. He can't conceive of it. Can't conceive of purity. He can't conceive of authority versus subversion. Can't perceive of tradition. He can't perceive of liberty versus. He's blind. And so,
But he won't
uh,
think he is. He thinks
no,
he's better than everybody else, and he will just simply say,
look,
"No, I've already figured it out." Right? That's leading with
mhm,
ego. That's all the things we try to tell people not to do. Maybe he's not the audience, but he's got a million followers. Certainly
he
among them, some of them should be the audience. We should be like, "Hey, man, this isn't the right way to go. You're gonna encounter harm, right? Your
yeah.
your relationships are gonna be terrible if you're this rigid." Sorry.
Look, no, it's we had a saying in combat operations that talking about some of these Islamic groups that would you want to align themselves with NATO or ISAF forces, especially the Marine Corps, because we were such a powerful tool that they could try to deploy against their internal enemies. It was a saying over there: "We hate each other, but we hate you more." So they would all be fighting until we showed up, and then some of them would join us, some of us would fight, and the ones that joined us would try to direct us at their former enemies that they knew would still be there when we left. And hey, they were right. Good job, Afghanistan. Smart. Anyway, the saying was that the problem with having extremists on your side is once the conflict's over, you have extremists on your side.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so with Therapy Jeff, you can remember when Preezy boyfriend Barack Obama won in 2008. I mean, literally, we're going to the sea levels are going to lower. We are the ones we've been waiting for. Very messianic figure. I it seems to me that the more uh, deficiently brained progressives really thought that that was the end of history. That nobody was not down the Obama line would ever win again. Which is why when Trump won, it was such a like, oh my God. It's like, wait, Jesus returned, but then Satan took over again? Like what? Like that's how it would be for Christians, right? Um, I think they went largely nuts. And I think that during that Obama 1 to Obama 2, and then there was that silly little accident of Trump 2016, and then Biden won again. I truly think that this would never occur again. Like that the right wing fascist Nazi evils would never be back in power, and so they laid it all out. And so these people like Therapy Jeff, they are the radicals. They so overextended themselves that now the only ones they have left with themselves are their fellow radicals, and it does not resonate at all with the people around them, like us, like
That's
normal Joe
fascinating.
Schmo,
Yeah.
right? And so they seem powerful, they seem strong because there is big money getting poured into these morons. Less so ever since USAID and some of this Doge stuff occurred, I know that for a fact because I mean, I'm person non grata with some here in Montana because I was like, yeah, Doge, get rid of all the funny money in NGOs. Well, come to find out, a lot of the Montana clinics were based on grants from these nonprofit organizations. And as I worked with some of these nonprofits, I'm like, hey, look, the intent is good, but what have you guys actually accomplished? Like, I can't tell. And the response was, that's not the point. The point is we're trying. And
Yeah.
it's like, no, not in adult land. So anyway, I think as a lot of this money's dried up and the belt tightening and some of the, you might call it, Jake, austerity. Like there's austerity measures being forced on the therapy industry where government slush funds are no longer available. So we got to get real fascinatingly tricky. Not tricky, not in the way of trying to trick, but innovative. We've got to get innovative with how we are accessing the trillions of dollars in the economy from the private realm, especially into mental health, because it is important. But the problem is, as you say, or as I said, and you agreed, it has become largely a almost theological, religious scab picking ceremony for a lot of people. It's something you almost go to therapy like you go to a priest and make confession. But that's not
Yeah.
that's not how therapy is. Like I tell clients, I'll fire them. You know, in our first session, I say, look, we're going to come up with a bunch of goals and things. If you've lost your mind, I'll help you find it. And we're going to set up these goals and you were going to pursue them. If you come to me week over week over week with excuses, I'm going to tell you to go find somebody who will sit and cry out of their vagina for you. It ain't me. That was crude. I shouldn't have said that.
We'll delete it. Probably not. Um, yeah, so you can send people away. I send people away very rarely because usually they buy in, and I analogize it to physical
Same,
health,
same.
right? Yeah, it almost never happens unless they're extremely disordered, help rejecting, complaining, and willfully sabotaging their own progress, and then coming
Right,
back reporting on said sabotage, and then you go, well, I'm not going to aid in your own demise. I'm not going to be part of your problem. I'm not going to enable this maladaptive behavior. Go somewhere else. It's unethical to keep treating somebody who's refusing to follow instructions. And no physical therapist would do that either. I
hmm,
say that broadly, like not PT, but doctor, dentist, obstetrician. If you're continuing to violate the instructions given to you for your quote unquote homework, you're not doing the routine. They're just going to say, we're not going to waste time. We're not going to waste your money. We're not going to occupy the slot in the calendar when there's another person right behind you who would otherwise use it properly. So
right,
the question becomes then, I think, if the government money is drying up, and it is, and in the state of Nevada, Medicaid, the division of Medicaid, they call it Division of Healthcare Financing Policy, but it's Medicaid under Department of Health and Human Services. They are clearly trying to push the Medicaid members into these community-based healthcare clinics, and ththey're called CCBHC. It's a Certified Community-Based Healthcare Clinic, or Behavioral Health Clinic, or FQHC, Federally Qualified Healthcare Clinic. And they're not
hmm,
interested in for-profit independent providers drawing Medicaid monies anymore. If they would, they'd be raising the rates to entice us to stay in network. They're not. It's been 13 years since we've seen a rate increase. So government money is going elsewhere. It's going to the nonprofits. It's going to whatever. Now, private money via insurance is not working either because we're seeing the
right,
integration of these healthcare systems vertically. So they want to capture everything from the ground level practitioner all the way through the insurance company, the pharmacies, the pharmacy benefit managers. They want them all in one sustainable system, self-captured, self-feeding. So that's pushing us out also. So we have to, it seems, pivot to private pay. And
right.
that may seem perhaps cruel to the have-nots. Not everybody can afford to pay $150 an hour, $250 an hour for really good psychotherapy. But on the backside, if it's really good, you only have to pay it for a few hours. Um, you don't have to stay in there Tuesday at 4 p.m. in perpetuity. What's your read on how we're going to access the trillions of dollars in the economy in private land to make this profession successful and sustainable if the grifters are drying up, if the on the whole the student graduates who are getting newly licensed are preaching a non-helpful message that keeps people in treatment without actually making it better, if we're
Yeah.
simply going along to get along as therapists, we're not actually trying to make sustainable change. Like how do the sharp people buck up against that and also appeal to the broad section of the distribution curve of the population who actually wants such things and aren't interested in being petted, or cried with.
Yeah. All right. So when I say trillions of dollars, this is what I mean and why. When I in my previous career post Marine Corps, I was very fortunate to end up in Amazon and Amazon Web Services over in Europe, and it was wonderful. It was like my dream job up until it wasn't, and I was like, man, this really is golden handcuffs. Like I'm not enjoying this anymore. This sucks. I had a mentor, high level guy that had left Amazon years before and had started up his own private consulting company. And I reached out to him. I was like, "Hey man, how did you work up the nerve to leave this? Because Amazon and Uncle Jeff Bezos, they pay you well. The restricted stock units were how I bought the property in Montana that I bought. Wonderful, right? And so I reached out. I'm like, hey, how did you work up the nerve to leave it? And he said, Jake, there's $80 trillion of liquid capital sloshing about the world at any one time. Are you telling me you're not smart enough to even get a tiny fraction of a percent of that? And I was like, oh, and looked it up. I mean, you can look it up. The CIA World Factbook, well, last time I looked, like 2, 3 years ago, says that there are, in terms of liquid capital, just going transferring, any one time is about $80 trillion. And it's like, holy
That's
shit!
crazy.
How does a guy, right? How does a guy get clever enough to even get 0.0001% of that, right? And so that's where my mind always starts. And it's like, all right, how much per hour?
Did I lose you? What happened here? He's frozen. This might take some clever editing. My Wi-Fi is good. Must be that hotel Wi-Fi. We're gonna keep recording just to see what happens. Hmm. Hmm. Oh, CareerFlex entered the waiting room. Let's see. You're muted. Still
There
waiting.
we go. There,
And he's
there we
and
go.
he's back. Okay. What,
I,
hotel
I
Wi-Fi?
am I. Are you in my ears?
I don't know. Am I?
There we go. You're
Am
not,
I in your ears?
but that is
Okay.
fine. So I always start from there. There's this much money. How much do I need to bring in per hour, per day, per month, per whatever? What do I got to offer to do that? Um, and that's why for me personally, for my little family, which is a uh, held by a licensed revocable trust, or I'm sorry, a revocable trust. Part of it is trades work, and part of it is the psychotherapy slash, lack of better terms, I'll say content creation, like writing and selling things that there's a lot of deep insight that therapy, the psychotherapy tradition has created that I think we tend to nerd out on the way it's written that you and I understand. But when you try to explain some of these psychotherapy, mental health things to the layman, they're like, all right, this all sounds boring and stupid and esoteric. And so a lot of it has got to be repackaged for the common man, right? The person who's not trained in what we're trained in. And this is why, unlike X, for instance, a lot of my focus is young men. And so I routinely use this word foid, which I guess came from the incel community for human or female humanoid. Um,
Oh, that's what that means. I didn't know that. I've seen
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
before.
And so female
Female.
humanoid or female android, and then there's moids, there's male androids. It's one of their little parlances that they use that uh, you can make you can get very far by explaining things to people at a street level, right? In the language of the
That's why I do my
common
videos.
vernacular.
Well, I haven't done them in a long time, but that's why I do the videos. I break down big psychological concepts so they're digestible.
Yeah, yeah, and I
People like
think,
that.
man, well, dude, with some of this stuff, like the audio pieces are good. What's huge right now for us, and where I think a lot of where this is going is artificial intelligence, like video content creation. Where do you remember how useful like watching like Carl Whittaker working with a family in prime time and seeing just how funny and authentic and real he was? You don't see that stuff anymore because the industry has been taken over by these like Hillary Clinton-esque, completely risk averse, false, fake, pre-scripted, transcripted training modules that
Yep.
make guys that have blood, sweat, and tears on them gag. It's
Yep.
gross. But people who are once safe and reliable and conservative, and I don't mean politically conservative, I mean like reputationally, emotionally conservative approaches, they eat it up all day and they sell it and buy it as CEUs. But that's a small percentage of people. Like I think that the
Well, that's how we get made
world.
fun of, honestly.
Well, right, because it's so lame. It's like that Christian couples counseling video where they were like negotiating sex or something on the
Yeah.
couch. On it, like
Yes.
it was like anybody who's ever been in a relationship was like, if I ever said that, my wife would kick me in the feminine penis. Like, what are you doing? Like, no. And so, but it's also for liability's sake and also doxing sake, man. It's also hard to create authentic, real videos in the old school way with real people. Thus and therefore, I think some of this AI video content creation is going to be huge because right now, through especially through like Google's what is it called, VO, their cinematographic video generator is so real to life, you can't tell you're not dealing with humans. And I think you can, with enough skill, which is why I'm working so hard on getting good skill with the AI, you can create stuff that again plugs us and our industry, Jake, back into why normal Americans would care about this stuff. Because right now they don't.
No, no, we think that they do because the pendulum seems to have swung from nobody talks about mental illness to everybody needs a therapist. But I think on the whole, we're still talking about a very small contingent of people who authentically endeavor to help themselves. I think the people who are uh, addicted to therapy, I guess we shall say, they're not the audience. They're already in, and they're probably not going to get much help anyway because they're in it for years on end, and it becomes the thing. I'm looking at more like, I mean, we gotta decouple ourselves from the DSM too. I think that's a problem. Why do you keep doing that? You keep rotating.
Sorry.
It's making me
Yeah,
dizzy. I'm not
I
on
had to put my ears in.
like I'm on a roller coaster. Um, I didn't pay to go to Disneyland this morning. No, I think that if we decouple ourselves from the disease model too, where you have to be broken in order to get treatment, which is an insurance managed care thing, then what we do is we open up this profession and what we do to literally anybody who wants to get better at anything. It's not just
Yeah,
fixing the sick, it's improving the well also. It's much like
right,
personal trainers will do. And I love that analogy. I use it all the time where, the physical therapist fixes what's broken, returns you to pre-injury state. The personal trainer takes what's well and makes you even better at that. We can do both. I think we're hamstrung largely. Some of it's licensing boards, some of it's rules and regs about where you can and cannot practice, all of which are
right.
dumb. They're
All of
dumb and they
them.
don't serve humanity. They're terrible. And I say that as a former licensing board chair who helped rewrite most of his state's laws. They're dumb. They don't work. They're probably harmful, actively, willfully harming people who could otherwise get help. State of California, I just learned from your friend and mine, Dr. Patrick Lockwood. If you're a licensed psychologist in the state of California, You cannot call yourself a consultant unless you have a psychology license. But if you do have a psychology license and you do consultation, we're talking, industrial organizational psychology consultation, like you go out and consult somebody. If you
Yeah.
do it outside of California, they'll pop you. If you don't have a license and you do it in California, they'll pop you for practicing
Yeah.
without a license. Like, so they protected the word consultation. It's like I can consult on anybody about anything. I can do
Right.
batting practice consulting with my 9-year-olds. Like, it's ridiculous. So I think if we could decouple ourselves from that process and do what you're saying and advertise adequately what it is that we do in this real in vivo form, even though it's artificial, that is a way to draw more people in with the money you're talking about who don't mind
Right.
spending it because they realize the return on that investment is so much greater than if they didn't spend it, right? Um,
Yeah.
there's got to be very few of us who can do that though. I'm way slow behind the AI curve and it just seems to be accelerating so much that I don't even know where to start or if I'll even catch up. So I may have to I may have to borrow you.
Yeah, man. No, you just it's you got to get good friends because what I think back to the problem with having extremists on your side is therapy has become almost a religious function for mean girls and effeminate men. That how often in social media, when somebody says you need therapy, it's actually earnest and authentic, and they mean you well.
Never. Never. It's
Never.
always denigrative.
Yeah, it's always used as a slight by the bitchiest, most horrible people in the world. And so, a lot of times I found early on that when somebody came into me as a client and they talked about oh, I've been in therapy for years, I'm like, oh buddy, here we go. It likely nobody had ever challenged them. Nobody had ever
Right.
been like, wait a minute. Why are
Why?
you telling the story that way? Like, why are you acting this way? Why are you
Why is it a badge
justifying
of
it?
honor that you've been in therapy forever?
Well, but also this what I call the cat orgasm style of therapy, where you sit there.
No,
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
no.
The client will say the most god awful things in the world about choices they made, and it's like, oh, I
Oh,
understand. Instead of like, wait a minute, say that again, but pretend you're hearing it from somebody you don't like. Does that still make sense? And they're like, oh my God, no, that sounds awful. I'm like, it sounded awful before. Like, nobody's ever told you this? Like, Jesus Christ. So that's the type of therapy I do, which is why
well, we're
people,
supposed to be non-judgmental, right? So you take that non-judgmental so far that you don't even judge the behavior as unhelpful. You get affirming care.
I have this glass right here, right? It's filled with caffeinated Mio. It's only useful because it has solid sides and an open top. If it was such an open container that it had no sides, it was just a
It
plate,
wouldn't
it
be a
would not be
glass.
very, no, it would not be useful for me. But that's what therapy has become these days. It's this just glass plate of uselessness. It's like, hey, drink up, guys. I know you're thirsty. It's like you've just made a mess. I think a lot of people, women and men, included, more men than women, but increasingly women are they stay away from therapy because they know too many friends that went to therapy and were destroyed. Um, Went to therapy and came out substantially worse than they were before. Uh, self introspection can be a narcissistic trait.
Yeah.
And when all you do is introspect instead of considering the actual empathy, what's going on, like developing a theory of mind for the people around you, you end up an unsufferable asshole. And so I think us going out there and creating, like I say, these AI videos, or like I do, these real to life reportings or stories that I've had within therapy, or just as a man succeeding in life, they've resonated. Like right now, in the past 7 days, I'm at 1.2 million views because of two stories, healthy, good, nice stories I've told about wife and I, um, just about the dynamics of a healthy marriage. And overwhelmingly, people are loving it. Now, there are some who come in and they're filled with such rage and hatred, and it's mostly feminists that are mad that women are not like men. Uh, or that yeah, women are not like men, and then like these what they call incels, involuntary celibates, they're mad that women are not the same as men. Like, uh, okay, sorry, dude, but by and large, people are loving it, and I think it's getting stories out like that because man, you go to any on especially on Facebook, which is a toxic soup in the last 2 or 3 years. You go to any marriage group, any therapy group, any of these influencers that talk about marriage or relationships or becoming a stronger woman, and it is a guaranteed recipe every time on how to destroy your life and end up alone at 60, surrounded in cat piss and cheap wine, like every single time. And I don't want that. So I'm telling stories about men love your wives. Understand they're not men. Sometimes they're silly little forest fairies, and that's great. That's what they're for, right? Don't be mean to them. Take care of them and get them some water. Pretty easy. Anyway, I go on and on.
I want to, speaking of your stories, I want to spend a few minutes asking about Sweden because you have a very interesting experience with the Swedish social services people when you were trying to
Yeah.
adopt. And that not only is a horrifying story and a tale of why socialism is bad everywhere it's tried, but it was interesting to me that these people who are 7 or 8 thousand miles away apparently took umbrage with you telling your recount, your lived
Hmm.
experience, shall we say,
Yeah.
of what happened to the point that they tried to prosecute you overseas? Like something, what
Yeah.
happened here?
All right. So the adoption story is California. We tried to do foster adoption in California. The Sweden trying to
Oh,
take our kids away story, that's totally different.
oh, that's right. I was
Um,
conflating those. I'm sorry.
yeah.
Yes.
So in Sweden, and I need to write my fourth Substack about it. Um, our kids were decidedly American. I mean, they'd grown up in the States. I tried to explain to them like, hey, Sweden's a bit different. They're a bit more reserved, blah, blah, blah. Um, but my kids just acted like rough and rowdy American boys. We put them in the public schools because one, the international schools were 18-month wait list.
What were you doing there, by the way?
Amazon Web
Is that
Services.
Amazon? Yeah.
Yeah, I happen to speak Swedish, just like most people do privately, and Amazon had sent me
I
over there
also
to help.
identify as a 37-year-old Swedish woman.
Yeah. How do I turn off? Do you know how I turn off this background blur thing?
It's
Hold on, let me try
probably
something
in
real
your
quick.
video settings. Did you switch
Yeah.
to your phone? Is that what happened?
Yeah, my computer died. I had my charging cable in my bag, but when I pulled it out, it was only half the charging cable. It was
Whoops.
brick to wall, but not brick to laptop. So that was just phenomenal planning on my part. Inspect what you expect, right?
Yes. Yes.
um, so anyway, my our boys were just doing things like WrestleMania recess in the public schools in Sweden. They would climb trees with gusto after class. They would not wear sweaters to school and when it was like 50, 60 degrees out. And the social just milieu of Sweden was such that there was a it took me a while to pick this up, but there's a condemnation that you'll hear in Sweden that is like very, very serious. And that is, oh, that's unusual. In America, James Dean Rebel Without a Cause, when somebody says that's unusual, yeah, yeah, hell yeah, man. Let your freak flag fly. Yeah, Jimi Hendrix. In Sweden, when they say that's unusual, it is a condemnation. It is this is not good. This is bad. You must not be doing this thing. It took us an embarrassing long time to figure out how dangerous that was for them to say that that was unusual. And so they tried. I mean, the Swedes tried to let us know that our kids running around outside, I mean, just patches of snow on the ground, but the grass is starting to grow. They would run around barefoot, right? Um, and it's like, all right, dude, well, if your feet get cold, put on some shoes. Like, this isn't rocket science. You'll figure it out. The Swedish mamas, no, you must put your kids' shoes on. And those children must not take their shoes off. And if they do, there's something definitely wrong in the home. Sweaters outside no matter what. Not walking home from school in like literally the safest city in Sweden. They lived a mile away from home, and it was like through like uh Hans Christian Andersen style magical forests with like forest trails they're walking home. And it was like, no, they must not walk home. Um, and so as my kids were just being this way, we kept getting call after call from the school for like these parent teacher conferences. And it was that longhouse style of meeting where many words were said, but to no point, to no end. It was like, guys, like obviously there's something going on, but can what exactly is going on in one sentence or less? And they just couldn't say it. It was, but they were getting so
If you don't know,
frustrated.
we can't tell you.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, well, if you don't know, then that's a problem enough already, kind of thing. And so my wife, who is red-blooded American, Shira, um, she started getting really pissed because I mean she grew up around some manipulative aunties and things, and she knows she knows what toxic femininity looks like, right? Which I am told this mentioning that toxic femininity exists means that you are a weak male,
Well, you're going to get me
scared.
canceled for saying that,
Yeah,
I'm sure. So I just can't wait
yeah,
for that to happen.
yeah. So anyhow, so she started calling these women out, like, what are we actually talking about here? Like, what's the problem? Like, are you impugning my motherhood, or what are you doing? And these women would just get more and more upset every time we would have one of these meetings. And uh, ultimately, it it led to uh, us getting anonymous complaints to social services. Now, another thing I didn't know in Sweden is back in like the 19, I want to say 60s. I might have my decade wrong. They made some constitutional changes within the Swedish government that essentially put social services as its own independent or the Child Protective Services, its own independent department or organization within the government, kind of like the FBI. Just kind of, yeah, it's kind of under the DOJ, but it just really does what it wants, right? And the Swedish Democrats uh, used it, weaponized it to go after their political opponents. Like if
Wow.
you start, so you can imagine what would happen in the US if social services like just CPS was federalized and then filled with Democrat true believers. You can imagine what the downstream effects would that be, right?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
And so anyone that showed nationalistic tendencies, or really anything that just didn't toe the line of social democrat, the social democrat, the social democrats, uh, would suddenly find, and it didn't matter how wealthy you were. In fact, there's a story. I've got all these books about Swedish like social history. I'm trying to find the story, but it talks about how there was a very wealthy Swedish industrialist, not quite nationalist, but patriot, who was funding all sorts of things that would help curtail what the Social Democrats were doing along the lines of immigration and so forth. And the Swedish social services came in and took away her children. And this lady was a multimillionaire, and so she hired lawyers and went. And the judges there within the social services ultimately determined that her children would have too unusual of a childhood growing up in such wealth, and so they revoked her parenting rights and put these children in
Wow.
foster care. She never saw them
Wow.
again. That kind
Wow.
of thing, right? Which you can 100% if just imagining if AOC or Ilian Olhan or whatever her name is got had control over such a mechanism of government, that would absolutely happen
Well,
to
like a gun control. I mean, red flag
yeah, yeah,
laws, right? You can weaponize
100%.
those, and it's well, no, the judge is going to have a clear eye on the
Hmm.
accusation and the petition that's filed. Not necessarily.
Right,
You
right.
think the judiciary is supposed to be balanced, but
Yeah,
increasingly it's very politicized. So yeah, I could see that.
yeah. So anyway, at about this time, there's something in Sweden where you can do these anonymous complaints to social services about anybody for anything. And you, as the accused, do not have a right to find out who made the accusation. So neighbors will often use it to get one up or take people down a notch within their local community. And so we started getting from these teachers these little oro anmälan. They're like these unhappiness complaints kind of. And so we started getting these complaints and we had no idea what these are about. And it's like, okay, CPS, child services, like it's not very serious. Like we got nothing to hide, nothing's going on here. About this time in my Marine Corps career, we had I was part of Operation Balakatan in the Philippines. We had come across this Filipino family that was just absolutely destitute, like uh, bamboo hut, dirt floors, like nine kids, nine little girls, and the oldest daughter. They lived right next to the forward operating base we were at. Um, it became very clear to us as a Marine Corps unit that she was getting groomed for human trafficking because the Chinese had come through and were doing a lot of industrial stuff, and she uh, revealed to us that she was about to go see the world due to this opportunity she had to go be like a cruise line hostess. And I was like, that seems really weird. Why in the world would a cruise line go be recruiting uh, 17-year-old girls for being cruise line hostesses in the middle of the jungle? That doesn't. So I started asking, and the Filipino guy's like, "Oh yeah, it's bad." I'm like, "What's bad about it?" It's like, "Oh no, it's bad." So I go on our SIPRnet. It's like the secure. That's the I'm sorry, classified internet. That we had in the Corps and look things up, and sure enough, human trafficking is a major conduit for funds for America's enemies. So we, as part of the Civil Affairs Group mission, we like to do anything we can to stomp on the toes of drug dealing, human trafficking, anything else. So it's kind of in our forte. So come to find out, there's what they would do is the Red Chinese shell companies would come in, recruit all these girls of young looking and young, bring them out to these ships 200 miles out in the middle of the ocean where international law is kind of not. And all these Europeans and Australians and Americans would fly in and basically rape these girls chained to a bed until they were used up and just throw them over the side, right? And so I go back to this girl's family. I was like, look, sorry to dash your dreams, but this is what this actually is. And the girl was like, ah, and the dad was like, oh. And so me knowing, from the industrial organizational psychology thing, you can't just destroy a plan and be like, well, go do something better. That never works. So you have to create a new plan. So I said, all right, so what are your other options? She's like, I really don't have any other options. We're broke. We're poor. We live in a bamboo hut in the middle of the woods. And I was like, well, what about college? And they looked at me like, ha ha, yeah, you might as well fly a Rolls Royce to the moon too, huh, buddy? And so I asked him like, well, how much is college in the Philippines? And my Filipino uh, translator, he says, "Oh, sir, it's very expensive. It's about equivalent of it's about $300 a month." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I call wife. I'm like, "Hey, babe, you mind if we go light on groceries every now and again and help get these girls through college?" And she's like, "Yeah, let's do it." So propose this girl that she rapid fire gets her grades up, applies to any school and every school she can. She made like 10 different applications, finally got into a civil engineering program. I also told her, I said, look, you're only allowed, you can get any degree you want as long as it's electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, or civil engineering. Because these are the big paying necessary jobs in the Philippines. They have plenty of nurses, plenty of business degrees, plenty of all that. So anyway, we took her on. She got into school, and then, as I didn't know, when you get one Filipino, you get all of them. So we've now put her other sister in electrical engineering, and her other sister in mechanical engineering, who's about to graduate here at the end of the summer. We've put all of them through.
That's awesome.
So back at the time, we consider it tithing. You got to look out for the
Yeah.
orphans and
Yeah.
the widows and the whatevers. Um,
That's
anyway,
part
so
of that oppressive patriarchy
yes,
that needs to be
it's
smashed.
beneficial patriarchy,
Yeah.
beneficial paternalism. So, anyhow, back to Sweden. Right at about this time, she was going through college. Things were great. She let me know. She's like, "Hey, sir, I'm gonna have to move soon because the government is coming in to widen the roadway, and they're gonna bulldoze our little bamboo shack. So we're gonna be homeless again." And I was like, "Well, the good news is, with eminent domain." They'll likely compensate you for your loss. And she's like, what's eminent domain? I was like, well, ask around about it. There is no such thing as eminent domain in the Philippines. And so I was like, well, crap, I can't have these damn girls homeless again because that puts them right back into the human trafficking thing. So I said, look, you're going to be a civil engineer. You're going to be my foreman. I'll help you fund the house, blah, blah, blah. So they found a piece of acreage, like a eighth of an acre or something, way back in the jungle. It's like 8 acres, actually, I think, way back in the jungle. And this time we helped them put together like a cinder block and steel home. Um, would you and I live in it, Jake? Probably not, but it costs like $20,000 to do, right? Janet and I, we funded half of it, and then we did some fundraising for the other half of it. So we got them in that. Well, you never know with dealing with that part of the world, no matter how much you know a person, if your money is actually going to pig and chicken parties every week. And so I told wife, I was like, look, they're about to finish up this house. I need to go there and get eyes on this project to see if I'm a moron. And it would probably be a good opportunity to take the kids. So, I mean, we've taken them to America, to Sweden, first world countries. We needed to take them to this second world country, developing nation, so they can see how the other half lives, which I thought was a great educational experience. Now, Sweden is so, because they're social democrats, so anti-homeschooling, it is insane. Like, you will get your children seized if you attempt to homeschool. We were not attempting to homeschool. But so I wrote a proposition letter to the local school administration and said, hey, look, we've got this once in a lifetime trip, 2 weeks. We want to take them out of school, so they can see, Philippines, and help with this project and blah, blah, blah. Very educational. What's in it for the school is the kids will take a bunch of pictures, they'll write a bunch of reports, and they'll come back and they can tell the class all about it, right? This is good things. And the school actually said yes. Um, so we went. What we didn't know is this pissed those teachers off so badly. They were so incensed that we would have the audacity to take our kids during school year out of school to the Philippines to do this thing that was so unusual, that they actually made a bunch of complaints to social services. So we came back to a very, very serious letter, that was actually serious, that was like accusing us of neglect, accusing us of abuse, accusing, because the teachers had started doing this thing where they would take our kids out of class and stick them in a room and surround them like three or four Swedish teachers and demand that they confess that they're being abused at home by Janet and I, and that is why they are
Wow.
so weird. And we
Wow.
tried to explain to them, like, no, they're just acting like normal American kids. And these women could not conceive that any child other than traumatized, beaten, and scared kids would hoot and holler in the halls or tackle each other at recess and wrestle around, and or not pay attention in class or be tired in class because they stole a tablet from our house and like hid it in their bedroom and like watched stupid cartoons all night, right? Could not, it was impossible for them. And so anyway, we get this letter, and it was a no kidding threat letter. And what got my attention is it closed out with, if we find that there's a cause that you are abusing your children, we'll take them away. Like, we will remove them. And I'm like, holy shit, I don't know anything about this. So I start asking around, to my Swedish friends. They're like, yeah, dude, this is very, very serious and way more serious than you know. Had a Swedish friend recommend that I get a hold of the Scandinavian human rights law firm. And so I called them up. I lured up because I was like, look, lawyer, I don't know anything about Swedish law. I don't know how this works. I don't know your customs or your culture. Can you, not to this level, right? Business wise, I'm good. take your kids wise, I'm not good. So the lawyer said, oh yeah, nope, you're very smart to get a hold of us. And we were working with several cases. The Swedish government does take children away constantly from foreigners. And once they take them away, you do not have any recourse. You will not get them back, even if you sue them all the way up to the European Court of Human Rights. You will not, and win, you will not get your children back. It is impossible. You just won't, because the European Court of Human Rights has come back, I think at last count, like 11 times saying, hey, Sweden, you have violated these parents' human rights by taking their kids away. You need to give them back. And Sweden says, no,
Make us. Yeah.
we think we're the best at this, at being uh, um, cultured and civilized. We're not going to. And so they don't. And you should, if you really want to weep, you should see the sexual assault and rape stories that come out of Swedish social services. So anyway, we lawyered up, and what I didn't realize is that in Sweden, you lawyer up after you're convicted, after your kids are taken. Because if you lawyer
Mm.
up before, that is a confession of guilt. You do not have the right to counsel in Sweden.
It's a Kafka
Um,
trap.
it is a
Anything you'd
Kafka
say
trap.
to defend yourself is proof that you are the guilty party. Yeah.
That
Wow.
is exactly it.
Wow.
So our lawyers came in hard. They came in fast. They said, look, Swedish Social Services, you need to give us all your documents that show why you think that there's abuse going on. You need to show cause here. Um, and they were incensed. They were outraged that we had hired lawyers. And so they went back and forth. And then so we were finally supposed to have a big hearing with the Swedish Social Services. Helene, the lady who was running the social services, messaged our lawyers and said, hey, sorry, I don't have the documents yet. I need to cancel today's meeting. Let's please reschedule. And so our lawyer said, okay, yeah, let's reschedule. She sent that email, went immediately to our kids' school. One of the things our lawyers had sent was, do not interview the Freeman's children without counsel present. Fair, right?
Except they
She
don't
sent
care.
that, yeah, she sent that email and immediately went and took our kids out of class and tried to get them to confess that she was saving them from their abusive, psychotic American parents. And our kids, we had told them, was
Wow.
like, look, if these crazy women keep doing this, just tell them no. Like, I will not talk to you without a lawyer. I want my lawyer. Um, and so they pulled my one son out, and he said to her, "You sound like a psycho." And that was all the evidence she needed that she was dealing with like the most Luciferian dark abuse case in Swedish history. Because
Right. Right.
why would a child ever say that to somebody who's so
Yep.
empathetic
Yep.
and
Yep.
caring and good?
Yep.
Um, anyway, so
Wow.
I sent that to my lawyers, like, and so she wrote us, wrote an email and said, "Hey, I after I canceled with your lawyers, I went to the school and interviewed your children, and they again reported that nothing is going on at home, but I just wanted you to know that I've done this." And I wrote back, I was like, "How the hell? Who do you think you are?" And I said, "This cannot be legal." And truly, like by the rules and laws of Sweden, it wasn't legal. And she said, "I don't even know if it's legal, but when it comes to the care of children, the laws do not matter."
That's where they got us to shut down schools and
Yes.
stick vaccines, well, vaccines, shots in our bodies and wear masks
Hmm. Yeah.
for the kids, protect the kids, protect the kids, kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, suspend all rules when you can hide behind that and of
Correct.
course, public safety.
Yep. So we ultimately the family we were renting that home from, they came back from Indonesia. They went from Sweden to Indonesia to do an expat thing. And so we moved to a smaller town. Part of the problem I think we had is my experience or our experiences in Sweden. It's like a guy moving to like Hollywood Hills or Manhattan and dealing with like the lunatic leftists there and being like, "Yep, all America, that's what it's like." Not so much like if you move to Billings, Montana, you're going to have a very different experience. If we had done it right, we should have moved well outside of Stockholm. And I don't think we would have had problems because they're wonderful people out there. Like I think part of the loneliest 6 months we ever had as a couple was living in the very high end Pinky Out area of Stockholm. But then when we moved out to the normal tradesman, everyday Swede, just great people, man. So we moved out there to a little town called Brunn, or Ingara, rather, and I thought because we moved across county lines, it would move from one county to another. No, 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 no. It stayed in the
Better.
clutches of this woman, Helen. Sorry, Helena, Montana, is our capital here, so I conflate. So, dude, us thwarting her nasty little grip from seizing our children, it became her personal jihad. We thought the case was over because once our lawyers bodied her by actually making complaints to the actual judicial level of the social services about her misconduct, I think she got her feminine pee-pee slapped, and so she pulled it way back tight. But she watched us for like the next 10 months, carefully, carefully, carefully until something else came up. And that is our lunatic, at the time, 9-year old, 8-year old. He's now 16 and he's still a lunatic, but now that testosterone's hit, he's a bit more reliable. But at the time, he would just do this weird stuff like in the Swedish schools, you take off your shoes at the front door and walk with your socks, cleanliness, ice, snow. He realized pretty quick that he was a ninja with socked feet, and nobody could hear him run. He also realized that if he that he could fascinate his teacher by getting up and like moving seats somewhere. Like, so he would raise his hand, ask a question. His teacher would say yes, and he would ask a question, and she would turn back to the whiteboard to write it down, and he would and move to another seat. So she'd turn around to find him, and he's not there. And the Swedish kids were like, "Whoa!" Like Joe Rogan, like, "Whoa!" And he thought it was the greatest thing. So as that escalated, he learned that if he ups and outs of the classroom, the teacher would stop the class. Everybody in the class was made to get up and go find him because for safety, because obviously something's wrong if he's gone. Like, I don't know if he got kidnapped or if he's ran away and he's hurt. And so because she's a very feminist woman, um, no concept, no theory of mind for little boys. And so she would turn his antics into a hide and seek game. And so she would call my wife literally crying, be like, "Your son, something is very wrong with him." And one of her big meltdowns was because he watched a documentary about the Titanic. Fascinating. He was just in it. And so he comes back into class and he starts telling stories about the Titanic like he was there. And for her, this was psychosis. This
Yeah.
wasn't
He's
9-year old
lying.
storytelling. Yeah, he is in full psychosis. And so she demanded that he receive a full psychiatric exam, which he did. And the psychiatrist, bless his soul, came back and said he's right below clinically significant for ADHD, but he's very intelligent, high verbal acuity, on and on. A very, very smart, clever kid. But the the psychologist said, but he is culturally decidedly American. He is American cultured, and you cannot look at him through the Swedish filter and think he's going to behave like a Swedish kid. He's acting like an American kid. He's a very healthy American kid. Because back in the States, all of Manus's antics was like, celebratory. Like the teachers loved it. They loved this little boy's energy. So he turns to the teacher and says, because we had the principal, student aide, teacher, Janet and I, and he turns to the teacher and said, "The problem is you." And he unloaded on this lady. He was like, "You need to," and it was kind of like one of the most base diversity, equity, and inclusion speeches I had ever heard about, like, look, if you're going to be a teacher with a bunch of international kids, you need to quit being so damn Swedish focused. Like, you need to understand these kids aren't going to act exactly like the ideal Swedish kid. Like,
A
kind of grow
nine-year-old
up.
said this.
No. The psychologist.
Oh, this. Oh, okay.
Yeah, the psychologist said this to the no, the man. The look, you cannot have a grown-up meeting with Manus in the room. You just cannot. So he was out. He was out. I don't know. He was out like doing somersaults in the sand or something stupid. I'm sure. Anyway, so this teacher starts panicking, like, no, you don't understand. He's crazy. No, he's not normal. He's not a good. And this psychologist turns to the principal and says, "You have a real problem on your hands." And he says, "I see that now." Well, so the student aide who was like different than the American style of student aide, she was like a 35-year-old, just really down to earth, like Earth Mama, like probably the best pies in town sort of lady. She loved our boy. The teacher was an absolute Swedish true believer. Like she, with the Senpaku eye, like everything that the Social Democrats had ever said would every political commercial brought her to tears at their truthiness. Um, and so the student aide loved this boy and tried to come to his defense, but it caused this teacher, this woman, to have such meltdowns about him that she just couldn't even talk about it. Well, again, what we didn't know is that this Swedish teacher then started making these anonymous complaints to social services because she didn't get the answer she wanted from the psychologist. She didn't get support from the principal, but she knew that she could do these anonymous complaints to social services. Well, as soon as that happened, that gave that Helena chick exactly what she needed. And so that's when it started again. And she came down like Thor's lightning and actually seized our other boy from school and took him all the way back to Stockholm to the police station because there was a conversation that occurred where the kids were talking about their parents and just like cool stories like my dad could beat up your dad, except not in Sweden. It's like my dad could do taxes better than your dad, kind of Swedish arguments. And my dad or my boy was like, yeah, my dad, he's like the super coolest, scariest guy in the world. He's like a Marine, like killed all kinds of people, and he has like guns all under his bed, and like because in America we had all our guns under our bed. Um, and he was just on it. Well, a student aide overheard this story. He's like, wait, guns under the bed? Killing people? Like, what in the hell? So he reports it up to social services. This Helena chick uses that to bring basically the sheriff's department and her. They come seize our boy, take him an hour back to Stockholm, and Jan and I have no idea. In the main police station there, they interrogated him for like 2 hours, and they filled him with juice and cookies and donuts, and he just went on, just like blah 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 blah. And at one point, this fool boy says, um, "Hey, uh, I'm not supposed to talk to social services, so don't tell social services any of this." Sitting across from social services, like when society collapses, he may not make it. Like, come on, boy. So I get a phone call, and this is all just stream of conscious 10-year-old boy stuff. Yeah, he was about 10, right, babe? Yeah. So I get a call from the chief of police there, and she says, "Hey, we have your son. He has told us very, very many concerning things. We are looking at preferring charges against you for neglect and abuse. Um, well, that's wife wants me to mention something that they told her, but they didn't tell me directly. They had called wife, I think, before. No. I called you. I called you. Um, so they tell me they're going to file charges against me for all these things related to the Marine Corps and my guns and killing people and all stuff. And then they called Janet and told her that we are going to seize your children. We are going to prosecute your husband for war crimes, like on and on and on. Well, and so I call Janet. I'm like, dude, I don't know what to do. I call my lawyer. I'm like, dude, I don't know what to do. And he's like, this is crazy. This is insane. So he automatically gets involved. So something happened in the next hour or so where just me knowing how organizations work internally, that she suddenly called back and said, okay, we are not filing charges against you. We will give your child back for now, but don't leave the country. And I'm like, what changed? I'm thinking that these lunatics went and presented to like what their equivalent of like the district attorney. And he's like, wait a minute. You fucking what? Like,
Yeah.
are you stupid? Because there is a lot of sanity, but not within the social services, right? And so we did get our kid back, and I'm like, crap, this is bad. And my lawyer said, if you he emailed me, it's okay, your kids are back for now, but I hope you understand, or I hope you can appreciate how much this has escalated. If you have the means to get out of the country, you need to get out of the country. And there's several reports, several accounts of parents trying to leave Sweden with their kids, and the police stopping the plane on the tarmac at Arlanda Airport and seizing the kids off the plane, never to be seen again.
Wow.
Yeah. And so
Wow.
I'm like, shit, I should have left. We should have left 10 months ago. Damn it. What are we going to do? So I asked my lawyer, I said, hey, look, find out from social services if we can they had basically these like weekend, like 3-day booze cruises from uh, Stockholm, the harbor there, to basically the Balkan states, like not Balkan states, but the Baltic states, Eastern Europe. Um, and it's like 79 bucks a person. It was a great, leave on Friday, get back Sunday afternoon, seeing all the culture of Estonia and Lithuania and stuff like that. So I said, okay, lawyer, find out if we could do that. And so he got permission. Yes, they can do that. And so we went over to those countries and did all our things, and nothing happened. And so that, in my military mind, you got to look at what, your enemy's most likely course of action, your enemy's most dangerous course of action. And so I said, okay, they're not checking us when we cross a border within the EU. So uh, I then went and we were like, we've got to make a plan to get out of here, dude. I had just this impulse, or this impression in my mind. You need to get out tonight. You need to get out tonight. And I called my wife, and she's in tears. And I'm like, whoa, what happened? I was like, shit, did they already take the kids? And so she tells me the story. She said, she's a gym bunny. She's a personal trainer type, always at the gym. And she had made some friends over there, and they could see that she was really upset about something. And they're like, hey, what's going on? What's going on? You're not like this. What's going on? And finally, she's like, look, okay. And she tells the story, and her buddy says, all right, look, I love you to death, but I got to tell you, I'm one of the foster parents that would receive kids like yours. I'm part of the social system, on the social services system on the far end, where we actually, I would get your kids. And I'm telling you, Janet, if they take your kids, you're not going to see them again. You need to leave. You need to get out right now. And his friend was like, uh-huh, you got to go, like, right now. And she was like, okay. And I guess from, she's not telling the story, but they were like, yeah, guess we won't be seeing you again, kind of thing. And so that conversation happened right when I got my, like, I'm telling you, dude, it was an impression. And so she told me that. I'm like, yep, that confirms that we got to go. So that night I bought tickets for all of us from the Copenhagen airport. And the next morning we packed up all our stuff. And this is quite a story too that I'm writing up about. We left at like 4 in the morning, got on the first train out of Stockholm, paid by cash, got tickets, went into Copenhagen, and got on the planes, where I realized that we have 6 kids, 6 passports. I brought my passport, somehow one of my old passports that had got like the double hole put in it. Um, Not my oldest son's passport, which I swear to God we had. Long story short, somebody had taken it out of the pile. I wonder if it was my boy, and it ended up on top of the toilet, like, tank at our house. So that's another story how we had to resolve that. But long and the short of it, we got out of there onto U.S. soil. Um, the next day, at approximately morning time, Sweden, our phones, both of them, just start bing, 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 ringing, ringing, blah, 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 blah. And it's friends of ours saying, hey, where are you? The police are looking for you. Hey, social services is here.
Holy
They just knocked
cow.
on our door. Hey, and our landlord saying, hey, if you're not in Sweden, don't come back. They're looking for you. You have such a wonderful family. It's reprehensible what they've done to you. You need to stay away. And social services saying, hey, we need to have a meeting with you. Can you come and meet us at the school? And we're like, what in the world?
Wow.
I'm like, no, we're in the US. And they said, and the social worker, it was a male social worker texting me said, you were not allowed to leave Sweden. You need to come back immediately. And I said, we are never coming
Yeah.
back, you dumbass.
Wow.
And so yeah, so
Wow.
dude, all right, so that's the story, and ultimately we ended up, up here in Montana buying land with our Bezos bucks. Um, and I started telling that story just, because I wasn't really on X at the time because it was, shitlib. But on Facebook, I
You
started
you
telling
have
the
about
story.
3 minutes, by the way,
Oh,
because I have a go at 11:30.
yeah, sorry.
No, this has been great.
So
I like it.
we, I start telling the story on Facebook, and most people are like, holy crap, I never knew Sweden was like that, or oh my God, that's awful, or oh my God, I can't imagine. But there was like 5% of very, very liberal people saying, oh, well, it actually sounds great that Sweden has such systems that would protect children that way. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, I know you. Like, I went to high school with you. Like, what? This was before COVID. And so I started seeing that Stepford wife crazy, like, whatever the state is doing to you is a good thing. And then when COVID happened and it came like fucking automatons, I was like, oh, okay, this is Sweden writ large. Anyway, so I sat on the story for like 5 years just because I was like, it broke my heart telling people that I knew personally that were like celebrating what Sweden had done.
The big
And then it
irony,
occurred
though,
to me,
about Sweden, the big irony about Sweden is that they didn't lock down during
I know,
COVID,
I know, I know,
right?
because it's their social services that's insane, but
Not the
not the
rest of the
entire
government.
country.
That's so weird.
It's so weird, dude.
I mean,
And
not
and,
really. I
and
mean, you look at our profession, our profession's weird, not the rest of
oh, dude,
other medicine.
if the psychotherapeutic industry in America had the ability and the authority to seize children from families,
We 100% would.
100%.
We 100%
Yeah.
would. Yep, yep, yep.
So
We
anyway,
absolutely would.
dude. Yeah.
So, so punctuate this though, because the reason I asked is that 6 years later,
Yeah.
you wrote
It,
about
it
it,
just it just occurred to
and
me. It was like,
Helen came back.
they not Helen,
Uh,
the Swedish media started
yes.
posting smear articles. And when I say Swedish media, like if you think that the US media is in bed with the Democrat Party, ha ha ha, yeah. Um, no. So they started writing these pieces about me that the reason I fled Sweden was one, that it was found that I abused and beat all my kids because they conflated our family with some anonymous family in a city 4 hours away from us, and that I was a tax cheat. That's why I fled Sweden because I didn't pay taxes in 2019 that I owed in 2021.
Ah, yes.
And Swedes that are true believers are like, yep, that makes sense. That explains everything. That's why he's written this series of lies about Sweden. Identical to the how the American leftist or the American liberal deals with information that would blow up their worldview. It's like, no, I will hold these two completely contradictory ideas in my head at the same time, and both are true. Um,
Not that
yeah,
Trump supporters aren't doing that right now too.
that's
Hey,
a
no new wars.
don't
No, the Iran war's okay though.
look. That's another conversation. I'm happy that Iran's getting it
I
as
was
a Marine.
I was referring more to the people who voted for Trump not wanting any more wars, now reverse engineering their justification
It's
for this one.
it's forever wars. We don't have forever wars. This one will be
No,
over in weeks
4 weeks, 4 weeks, two
to
weeks,
flatten
two
the
weeks to
curve.
flatten, 2 weeks to flatten the
The
reactor
mullahs.
core.
That's another
Well,
podcast.
yes, yes, it is. Well, thank you. Is so lately I've been inconsistent with it, but I've been asking my guests, what's one thing you want the audience to take away from your appearance here? We covered a lot of ground. Most of it was a personal story about Sweden.
Yeah. Um, Fortitude. Build your fortitude, build your resilience, stay motivated because it's going to get a lot worse. Like, there's no sugarcoating it. You must build your fortitude and your tribe of trusted around you because it's going to get crazier than you can imagine.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think I find myself agreeing with you. I don't want to agree with you, but I
Right.
think you're right. So, well, you enjoy your Mio infused water there. It looks delicious. I am parched. I finished my coconut water with pulp, and
Hmm.
I'm gonna go infuse my body with something nutritious and delicious. So,
In my house, we call coconut water hobo mouth water because that's what hobo mouth water would taste
oh no,
like.
this stuff's great. I love this stuff. This is great. Got it at a grocery outlet for like less than $1 a can. It's great. Anyway, thank you, Jake
Yeah.
Freeman. Where can people reach you?
Um, careerflex.net. Easiest way.
Career, careerflex.net and at
Yeah,
CareerFlex on the socials.
that's it.
Thanks, man.
Yeah,
Have yourself a wonderful afternoon and drive back home safely and see you online or somewhere.
on signal. All right, man.
Yeah, later.
Adios. Bye.